Once upon a time, there was a beautiful young woman named Persephone. Persephone enjoyed all of the beautiful things in life. Swimming in the ocean, relaxing in the forest, staring up at the trees. And she loved to pick flowers. One day she was out in the forest, and Hades, god of the underworld, noticed her. He thought that she was so beautiful, and he wanted her for himself. So Persephone is out in the forest and comes across the most beautiful flower she had ever seen. And so as she bends down to pick it, a hole opens up in the ground, and Persephone is dragged down into the underworld by Hades, into the darkness. Now, Persephone's mother was Demeter, the goddess of agriculture in Greek mythology. Demeter had no idea what happened to her daughter. She searched far and wide, and no sign of her beloved Persephone. Until one day, she is told what happened. The sun, from its vantage point up in the sky, saw the whole thing take place and told Demeter that her daughter had been taken by Hades. Demeter was angry. She was livid. She tried everything that she could think of to get her daughter back, but none of it worked. She asked her brothers and sisters, the fellow gods of Olympus, to help her, and they all said, meh, no thanks. We don't want to get involved. And so Demeter got even more angry. And being god of the harvest and agriculture, she decided to send a drought. The drought ravaged the land, killing all of the plants, starving the animals, and starving the humans. And now the gods took notice. You see, the Greek gods loved their animal sacrifices. So with the animals starving and the humans just worried about making it through another day, the sacrifices stopped. Now it was personal. So Zeus, the king of the gods, tells Demeter, fine, I'll help you. And he sends a messenger down to the underworld to negotiate Persephone's release from Hades. But one thing they didn't know: while Persephone was in the underworld, Hades offered her a pomegranate. You see, Persephone didn't know that if you eat fruit in the underworld, that you are bound there for all eternity. By the time Zeus's messenger arrived, Persephone had eaten 4 of the pomegranate seeds. Zeus ended up being able to still reunite Persephone with her mother. But the deal was struck. For 4 months of every year, Persephone would return to the underworld and return to Hades. The ancient Greeks told the story of Persephone like an origin story for the seasons. When Persephone was in the underworld with Hades, it was winter and the fields were barren. But when Persephone came back up to reunite with her mother, it was springtime. The colors and the flowers and the trees and the cool breeze and the crops grew. One of the things that I love about Greek mythology that's so different from the way that we view things in the modern day is that they never assigned a good guy or a bad guy. Listening to this story, it's easy to paint Hades as the bad guy. After all, he kidnapped her, held her hostage, and tricked her to being bound to him. But the Greeks never made that moral judgment. They also never asked the question why. We get so caught up in our whys, don't we? Why me? Why this? Why now? The Greeks never asked that. For them, the story unfolds, and it is what it is. One of the things I find interesting about this story is the ancient Greeks who worshipped the goddess Demeter did not view Persephone as her daughter. Instead, they looked at Persephone as an aspect of Demeter herself. Persephone was light and carefree, childlike and joyous, delighting in all of the beautiful things. And what's beautiful about this story is the same thing that's beautiful in the stories of all the wisdom traditions. Whether it's ancient Greek mythology or a story from the Christian Bible or from any of the various wisdom traditions throughout time, throughout the world. And that's this, that when we immerse ourselves in these stories, we become each and every character. And so the beauty in what the Greeks did, by not passing moral judgment, by not making anybody the good guy or the bad guy, is they opened up the space for us to play every part. Because let's face it, no one wants to be the bad guy. So I want to look at this story and discern some spiritual lessons from the story of Persephone, from her time in the darkness, her eventual reunification with her mother, and then her fate of having to return to Hades again and again and again. So we're going to look at this through the same lens that the Greeks viewed it, and the same lens that we can view all wisdom traditions, looking at this story as a story of us. So have you ever had a time in your life where you felt like you lost your joy? Where your lightness and your carefreeness, your childlike nature, felt like it had sunk to the bottom of a pit? Have you ever had a time in your life where you felt lost and you long to be reunified with that part of yourself that seems to have gone missing? Maybe you even lash out in anger like Demeter did in your quest for wholeness. So you'll notice in this story that once Persephone, our joy, our lightness, is taken into the darkness, we really don't hear much from her. We don't hear about Persephone trying to build a giant ladder or claw her way out of the pits of hell. No. We hear about that aspect of ourselves that is still above ground. Demeter, her mother, is searching frantically for that part that's gone missing, and she gets angry. Modern psychology tells us that anger is often a secondary emotion, meaning that underneath the outer appearance of anger or rage is a deeper feeling. In this case, I think it's fear. Demeter lashes out in anger because she is afraid that she will never get her daughter back. She is afraid that she will never be whole again. And so what does she do? She sends a worldwide drought and kills all the crops and starts killing the animals. A bit of an extreme cry for help if you ask me, but I like the enthusiasm. You see, Demeter wasn't afraid to make people uncomfortable. She was missing her joy and light to the darkness, and nobody was helping her. And so she made it uncomfortable for them so they would pay attention to her. And who ends up coming to her rescue? Zeus, king of the gods. Now, Zeus, you probably know, was associated with lightning. And lightning, according to Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore, represents the power of spirit in action. And light, of course, throughout ages, has always symbolized inspiration. That's why when we have a great idea, we say that it's a light bulb moment. So Zeus represents that spiritual illumination that comes to Demeter, the part that is above ground. Persephone may be lost in the darkness. A part of you may be lost in the darkness, but a part of you is still above ground. There is a part of you that is yearning for your wholeness, yearning to be complete. And through the spiritual illumination, through the power of spirit represented by Zeus and his lightning, that is how Persephone, that aspect of ourselves that we lost, comes into the light and is reunified for our wholeness. So Demeter realizes this when her and Persephone are reunited. I imagine there's a beautiful celebration, probably complete with flowers, as her light and her joy is back. Maybe she even appreciated Persephone a little bit more after having lost her for a time. Dr. Lisa Miller, a clinical psychologist, author, and the leading researcher on the connectedness between spirituality and mental health, says that depression and spiritual awakening are two sides of the same door. Sometimes we think that we grow and transcend in spite of our darkness, in spite of our depression, in spite of mental illness. But Lisa Miller says that they are two sides of the same door, depression and spiritual awakening. In fact, her research has shown that in our brain, biologically, the parts of our brain that wither and die in a lifelong depression, those exact same parts of our cortex actually strengthen and thicken when we have a strong sense of a transcendental dialogue with our higher power. The exact same areas of our brain that wither and die from depression are strengthened through our spiritual nature, strengthened through our relationship with the divine. Now, one of the things that seems so unfair in this story is that Demeter goes through all of this to find her wholeness, and yet Persephone has to go back to the depths of hell again and again and again. It does seem unfair. But these cycles of light and joy and carefreeness and growth only happen because we also have these cycles of grief, of pain, of struggle, and of depression. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, it says, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up." And it goes on telling us, reminding us about these natural rhythms and natural cycles of our life. Just like the natural rhythm of the seasons that the Greeks use this Persephone story to explain, this same story can explain the natural rhythms in our life as well. And the hope and the joy in this story is that even though Persephone still had to go down to the underworld for 4 months every year, we can say, that's awful, it's no fair, it wasn't her fault, but it doesn't matter. Remember, the Greeks didn't ask why. The story is what it is. Of course we want to be the Persephone skipping through the forest and plucking the flowers all the time, right? But sometimes we get that, and sometimes life gives us a self-absorbed man who wants to drag us down to the darkness with him. As the great Roger Klein, lead singer of my favorite band, wrote, "Sometimes I slumber on a bed of roses. Sometimes I crash in the weeds. One day's a bowl full of cherries. One night I'm sucking on lemons and spitting out the seeds. But you know how the old adage goes. When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade." And Persephone certainly did that. You see, she became known as not just the goddess of springtime, but those 4 months that she was in the underworld, she was queen of the underworld. She ruled right alongside Hades as an equal. Our time spent in the darkness is not lost. In fact, the lessons that we learn in our deepest depression, in our deepest sorrow, in our deepest grief are the very things that help us to grow and come back even stronger. In Japanese culture, there is a practice called kintsugi, which is the art of mending broken things with gold. The philosophy and the metaphor behind this art form is that we embrace the imperfections and the impermanence of the world. That even through our cracks, our flaws, or the parts of ourselves that feel broken, something beautiful and even stronger can be made. There is no end to the spiritual journey. I know for me, my deepest depression felt exactly like that black pit to the underworld. And there were times where I felt absolutely powerless against it. But I know what was true for me is true for you. That no matter how dark things feel, there is still a part of you that is above ground. There is still a part of you that is calling for your wholeness. And by embracing the seasons of our life, and by calling on the illuminating power of spirit to heal and transform our lives, even time spent in the darkness can be used for the most beautiful things. Just like Persephone, we can use our time in darkness to our advantage. We can rule the darkness, but we don't make our home there. One day we rise again, become goddess of springtime, go skipping through the forest once more. So I'll leave you with this poem. Do not fear the darkness you see in the world, or the darkness you find within yourself. Darkness is only a longing for light, a region of the soul hungry for love, begging for love, yearning for love. Darkness needs you, you see. It needs your courage and your light. It needs your warmth. Darkness is powerless without you. And when you fight it, you feed it. And when you fear it, you feed it. But when you illuminate it, when you face it and drench it with understanding, it cannot be darkness anymore. Do not run from darkness and seek light. Be the light that you are, and the darkness will seek its own end as surely as dawn follows night. I love you, and God bless you. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. As some of you may know, I'm currently in ministerial school, and one of my classes this term is homiletics, which basically means preaching or public speaking. And so this was actually an assignment for that class. I had to take a Greek mythology story and turn it into a spiritual lesson. And I also had to use a costume piece and props. So it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I hope that my little flower headpiece and lemonade added to the story and made it a little bit more fun. So let me know what you think. I actually, though, was really passionate and excited about doing this story. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology. Actually, little known fact, one of my tattoos is actually a representation of a different Greek mythology story. So it is something that I'm really passionate about. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month, and so I thought it was about time that I start doing some videos and some talks and putting out some content related to the intersection between spirituality and mental health. It's a topic really near and dear to my heart, and very personal for me. As you might have gathered from the story, I did go through my own really bad depression, and I use spiritual principles like some of the ones that I teach and talk about on my channel to help recover from that. In addition, of course, to talk therapy and for small periods, some medication even as well. So I am really passionate about this, and since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to provide my BetterHelp referral code. So BetterHelp, you might know, is an online service where you can meet with a therapist either by texting, voice chat, like a phone call, or video chat. So I use it myself personally. The referral code that I'm going to give you is my personal referral code. It's the same one that anybody who signs up for BetterHelp gets. You get, I believe, 2 weeks free of therapy, usually an hour a week, and then you can also text with your therapist between your appointments. I was matched with my therapist within less than a day from when I signed up. I haven't changed, though you can change therapists. I love mine. She's amazing. She sends me nice little thoughts kind of throughout the week. So it's a really great service. You get 2 weeks free, and I get a credit on my BetterHelp account. So it's a way for you to support your own mental health and to help support my mental health as well. So thank you again so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Like I said, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I hope you did too. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful day.